Hi everybody, welcome to my channel where I make videos about exposure and response therapy. Where I make videos about exposure and response prevention therapy, especially in regards to me treating my choking phobia. So today, I'm going to be doing the same thing we do 6 out of 7 days for the past 2-3 months now. Which is rating your anxiety. Rating it, staying with it, doing the things that is causing this anxiety, and then watching it as it comes down. This is a real process that is done by people who suffer from anxiety, and it actually works. It works in terms of it helps the person manage their anxiety to a level where they don't feel so scared doing the things they want to do. For example, for me, eating. I have choking phobia, so I have fear of eating food because I think I'll choke. So the best way to deal with this is to rate your anxiety level. Give it a number out of 1 to 100 before you do the exposure, right before you do the eating, and then rate your anxiety level after you've eaten. And so that's how this video is going to go. Afterwards, I'm going to try to talk about some thoughts I might want to talk about, maybe whatever I want to talk about besides just watching me eat and see my anxiety, because this part of the video is mostly for me. It's also for you guys. I do choose to have it on here because I want to show people what it feels like to have choking phobia, to have anxiety, and how one deals with it effectively. But the first part of the video does get repetitive over a period of time because you've been seeing I've been doing the same thing over and over again. I don't really talk. I just kind of put some music on and just eat, write a number down, try to sip my thoughts. It's only after the second part of the video that is more talking. So, my anxiety level of choking on food. I gotta get a 0 to 100. As of right now, I'm gonna go with it's a solid 10. I was gonna say 5, but I think 10 is better. So we do that, and now what we basically do is just we eat. We basically eat. Yeah, there's no easy way of putting it. If you have choking phobia, and you just gotta go dive right in. So I'll have some music on or something while we do this because I know I don't really like to talk when I eat.
Do Surah Al-Ikhlas, right? Really do it with the intention of Ikhlas. Ya Allah, akhlasni, biwajhika al-kareem. Do it. Say it to Allah alone in the night. Get up. Ya Allah, Allah can do that. And if you do it with sincerity, He'll do it. But, if it's all just like, oh, okay, and what's next? What's the next disease? I mean, this is serious stuff. This is our lives, this is serious stuff. This is not, this is our life. I take this stuff really seriously because it scares me. I read this stuff. I read Imam al-Ghazali's signs of insincere preachers and sincere preachers, and I'll tell you, I saw more stuff on the insincere side. And it really frightened me. You read this stuff, this is the danger of this science. You start reading it and you start seeing yourself in it, and it's unnerving because we're going to be taken into account for all this. This is what life is about, and either we get the point or we don't. But the point is, we've been given a huda. This is guidance, and we're being told. Now, another thing, which is a really important dua to do, right? And he doesn't mention it in here, but consider the nasiha, and it's a great dua. It's from our Prophet ﷺ, so it has to be great. But to do this 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening. This is prescription drugs, right? No side effect. No, it has primary effect. Oh Allah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika wa ana a'lamu. I seek refuge in you, that I should associate with you and I know it. In other words, shirk, riya. This is a dua for isti'adha min al-riya, and the Prophet ﷺ did this. So, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika wa ana a'lamu. وأستغفرك من كل, and there's a riwayah مما لا أعلم, the one Sidi Ahmed Zarruq uses, من كل ما وأستغفرك من كل ما لا أعلم. So this says, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you that I should make shirk with you. Ushrika bika wa ana a'lamu. And I know about it, which is riya. That is riya. Wa astaghfiruka min kulli ma la a'lamu. And I ask forgiveness for anything that I'm not aware of, because there's shirk that you're not even aware of. In other words, riya is very subtle, and it gets more and more subtle as the more you work on yourself. All right. So and I mentioned the story. One of the Salaf used to pray for 40 years. He prayed every day in the first line, and one day he was late, and he didn't want to go in because he didn't want people to see him in the later lines. And he said that he realized 40 years he was just showing off. And so he repeated all of his prayers for 40 years. Now the ulama use that example just to say, you know, sayyat hasanat al-abrar, sayyat al-muqarrabin. The good actions of righteous people are the bad actions of people that are in the presence of Allah. So it just gets finer and finer. And so I wouldn't, you know, I mean, what we really worried about is literally we're conscious of it. And we just have to ask Allah to forgive us for anything we're not conscious of. And that's what this dua is. And it's from the Prophet ﷺ. So in it is a shifa. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. We reveal in this Quran what is a shifa, a healing for the hearts, and a rahmah. Right? Shifa'un lima fi sudur, right? It's a shifa for what's in the heart. The Quran is a shifa. وَنَشْفِي صُدُورَ قَوْمٍ مُؤْمِنِينَ. And we cure, Allah says, nashfi صُدُورَ وَيَشْفِي, the Quran, وَيَشْفِي صُدُورَ قَوْمٍ مُؤْمِنِينَ. And the Quran cures the hearts of believing people, right? So the heart can be cured, and this is one of the du'as, because the Quran tells us to وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ, what the Prophet gave you, take it. So he gave us this, so it's a really good du'a to do every day, at least 3 times a day. And then he says, and this is really, look at this, he says, لِزَمَنِ الْقَلْبِ مِنَ الرِّيَاءِ يُلْفَى دَوَاءً أَيَّمَا دَوَاءِ. As for the chronically diseased heart that results from constantly showing off by doing good works, even it will find a cure in this. And what a cure. So he's letting you know this is a serious treatment for this disease. All right, so people believe it and practice it, and inshallah you'll see the results of it. And then he says, أما الرياء بستر ذنب أو خنا وواجب كما ابن ذكري بينا. He's saying, as for hypocrisy, and here Riyah is closer to a type of hypocrisy that relates to veiling your wrong actions, hiding your fault. This type of Riyah is a Riyah that is wajib, according to Ibn Zukri. In other words, if somebody says to you, did you ever drink alcohol? You say, I never drank alcohol. If somebody asks you, did you ever steal? And you made tawbah from that, then you say, no, I never did that. He's saying that that's something that's not riyah. That's actually that's actually really important. It's wajib. It's not considered a lie by Sharia, and I'll tell you why. My note there is that this is in fact a type of riyah if the person desires others to consider him better than he is by concealing his misdeed from them. In other words, it becomes a riyah when you're doing it because you want people to think you're better than you really are. But it is an obligation to conceal one's wrongdoing, not for this reason, but so that misdeeds are not taken lightly by the community. Because you see, if I don't know that you've drinking alcohol, and I say, have you ever had alcohol? And you say, yes. I say, oh, then I'm not that bad, you know. You see, it kind of, it lessens the whole enormity. Because kabira means enormity. The word in English language, enormity, means a great evil. It's very similar to kabira. Kabira is an enormity. You don't want to make little of enormity. You want the society to actually respect. And I just added in there that although, because if people freely admit their transgressions, this leads to complacency and lack of shame. And although there's an obvious hypocrisy inherent in this, it is really a type of homage that vice pays to virtue, in order that virtue can act as a deterrent to the inurement of deviation in the social arena. In other words, you know, vice, in a healthy society, virtue is the norm, is the ma'ruf, and vice is the munkar. In an unhealthy society, the opposite occurs. So when you have a healthy society, vice has to pay homage to virtue by hiding itself. Do you see? So it's really, it's not a hypocrisy, it's a respect for virtue. And that's why the Sharia is honoring it. And the danger, see, this is what like Freud said, no, this is all hypocrisy, and really you're all seething with sexual lusts and with desire and all these things, so just let it all come out and you'll be healthy. And now, you know, welcome to 1998, right? Seriously, where it's all, I mean, unbelievable. Newsweek, you can't really even read it now. It's the last few issues is unbelievable. The stuff, there's no shame, none. I mean, this guy Will, writing, it's pornographic, and he's like a conservative commentator for Time or Newsweek or something. And this is, there's no shame, because they're no longer paying homage to virtue. They don't even have the shame to hide it all. It's all like, the problem here is not what he was doing in the room. That's all fine. There's no, we all do it, no big deal. The problem is he lied about it. I mean, this is really the whole, you know, so it's become like sick and perverse. And even some people say, well, big deal, everybody lies about that. You know, it's not like lying about something really big. But it is big, it's an enormity. How did it become such an insignificant thing? Because in this culture, in the 1960s, in most cities in the United States, if an 1960s people, if an unmarried girl got pregnant, she disappeared. She disappeared from the community. And about 7 or 8 months later, she showed up again. And they say, oh, well, she went off, you know, to stay with her grandparents. What she did was they sent her to a place to have her baby, and then they put the baby up for adoption. She came back to the community and nobody knew about it because there was shame. That's 1960s. You know, seriously, that's not that long ago. In 1968, a woman was kicked out of Radcliffe for living with a man in the same apartment. 1968, Radcliffe was at that time still considered a reasonably radical place. And they kicked the girl out for living. Now they're co-ed dorms. I mean, it's no, who cares? So how did it get from it? It got from that by having Big deal. Who cares? Belittling it. So Islam says no, it's better to have that hypocrisy, because what it is really, it's honoring virtue. That's the important thing. It's not that there's that hypocrisy. That's seen as less harmful than what happens when it's all let it all hang out type attitude. Big deal. That is what's dangerous, not the hypocrisy. And this again is the idea in Sharia of lesser of the two evils. They're both evil. You can see that. Obviously, nobody wants to be a hypocrite or tell lies or say, no, I never did something and you did it. But the point is, the Sharia is saying there's a greater evil in saying that you did it. Because it's going to lessen the impact of the action when other people start saying, oh, he's doing that too? Or, oh, he did it? Maybe it's not that bad. So instead of having that attitude, no, of course not, I would never do that. Because there's a shock. Seriously, it's not, this is really serious stuff. And this is how the Muslims viewed the world. Right? It was shame. Right? Right. What you're doing is you're trying to, what you're doing is you're recognizing you don't want this other person to lessen their fear and their respect in the wrong action. That's it. Well, see, even Imam Junaid, and I really think.
Almost done the no talking exposure part. Just have a couple more fries, because this is very important, guys. Calibrate your anxiety for what you are trying to get better from. For example, don't think if you're doing an exposure for choking phobia that you should care about your social anxiety. Doesn't matter. We're not caring about your social anxiety right now. We're caring about your choking phobia. So what is the choking thought, right? Thought that I'm going to choke to death on food. I'm going to, never be able to eat. I'll faint. I'll have to go to the hospital. They put a feeding tube in me. Those are the thoughts you want to talk about. I know it's hard, especially with people who have different anxiety disorders, to kind of just stick with one. But you got to remember, that's the only way I got better, I think. I used to jumble in oh, okay, so my anxiety level went from like a 30 to a 20, but I was only thinking about my social anxiety. I wasn't really thinking about my choking phobia. I was just like, okay, I'm just seeing the numbers and the times and what I'm eating, right? I do the ratings, but I wouldn't really understand what they mean. It's because the ratings were wrong. You have to have the ratings specifically for your choking phobia. For me, it's called calibrating your ratings. Get the exact number. You can actually get as close as possible. Keep a record of it, So let's move on with that. It was at a 10, so I'm going to have some fries to become more mindful. Because it's really, really hard to kind of calibrate your anxiety without actually getting anxious, right? And I know it sucks, but it's kind of the medicine you need to take. I'm going to have a couple fries here and see what my anxiety is at. Having a little trouble here. It went to a 9. I had trouble, so I was thinking 10 or 9. It went from a 10 to a 9. And that's normal. Because when you have anxiety at this low, it is the practice of doing it over and over again. That's a success. Basically it is. And the way you keep the success and don't get, lackadaisical about it, is doing it on a daily basis. Or else you'll see sometimes your anxiety will go up. I have a feeling that's probably what's going to happen if I stop making these videos. Because you just forget. You forget what you're doing. You just forget. You forget things. You forget what you just did. Sometimes you just forget things. You just like off and never land. Then you get snapped back to reality. So it's good to have a record of these things. So I'm going to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Basically, let's see. Stay with it. I'm normal. These are all thoughts I'm having. Social anxiety. Food. Pencil will break apart or fall into my food and choke me. One of the things I wanted to talk about is this pencil here. While I was writing, I thought it would fall into my food. I wouldn't notice, like, you know, the you can see the top part of the pencil. I can show you the lead part of it. It used to be lead, whatever they make of it now, right? I thought that would fall into my food, even though it needed to break off. Or I thought it would break off or it'd fall somehow. A loose piece would fall, and it would enter my food, and I wouldn't see it or notice it, and it would choke me. It's odd how your anxiety has different manifestations. For example, how you're gonna choke, right? How it's gonna happen. Sometimes it's an image of you driving to the hospital, trying to call 911, right? Figuring out how to talk to the person because you're choking. Other times it's like this: something drops in your plate, you don't see it, and you assume the worst. Even though you're imagining the thing dropping in your plate, like, you know, you're coming to this conclusion: oh, a thing dropped in my plate just because it hovered over my plate. Now, if you're careful, you look at a quick cursory glance, and you're just like, okay, I don't see anything. It's fine, right? But it can get distracting if you don't get on top of it, these ideas. And we have, don't act like a girl. Sometimes I think, I have these thoughts from time to time, and as much as I want to believe them, I know they're not true. For example, I believe, I had this thought, it was a belief for a while, that if I could just kind of like act a certain way, my homosexual tendencies could go away. Like I actually got serious, and I went on to websites that claim to offer courses and books and, you know, conferences basically, where you go out in the woods and learn how to suppress your, you know, homosexuality, basically. Those thoughts are comforting. They're also very unhealthy and unscientific. And it was after a long period of time of soul searching, I came to the unfavorable conclusion that there is no way to pray the gay away. You just gotta be part of it. For example, you have to go downtown and be with the gay people in their mental group settings, you know, support groups about whatever they have, because heteronormative society has a bias against gay people. For example, a doctor who's conservative may not, you know, fully understand the pain of a homosexual person. You see it a lot in racism. I don't want to get into racism. Racism is just a waste of time at this point. I don't really want to talk about it right now, really, ever. I'm political, but it's just, this is a psychological channel, and I don't want to get sidetracked. And so it's best to kind of like integrate within your own social group. For example, my social group before I was, you know, came out gay. I was gay, but like before I came out and really realized who I was and was proud of it and was unashamed, that was before I converted to Islam. I had a group of social friends who were like, you know, my ethnicity, same likes, like music, and smoke some weed and hang at each other's houses. And I think if I never told them I was gay, I would have still been friends with them, and I would have had a better upbringing. I would have had a more, you know, when you don't have disruptions in society and in socialization processes, you become a better nurtured person. And because of my disruption in my socialization process, because my friends abandoned me, because I told them I was gay, it causes this need for the person to quell that loneliness and get over that trauma by being with people who will accept them, right? And hence that's why I'm talking about this. Next one is anyone home to save me and give me the Heimlich maneuver? See, this is a thought that it's so weird how it comes. Like, you know, I've been trying to do this since my anxiety was really, really high. This idea of don't care who's home or not, because you shouldn't let your food preferences or your hunger be swayed by who's home or not, right? Do other people's hunger be swayed by who's home or not? Not unless they're in a relationship and like, oh honey, I'm gonna be late for work, so can you just make dinner and we'll eat it together and blah blah blah. All right, like, oh, even though I'm hungry, I'll stay so I can eat dinner with you. If you live alone, you know, it doesn't matter when you eat as long as you eat, right? Like, barring like health problems, like I'm not supposed to eat 2 hours before I sleep because of acid reflux. But these are things you got to talk about. So, I mean, these are things you see and you're like, I shouldn't be thinking about this, right? Like, you have to mentally train yourself not to think this way. Sometimes it's best to just ignore what's happening to people who live, like I live semi-alone. I have not a separate entrance, but kind of like a door that leads to the main house. So I can comfortably isolate myself enough to be like, okay, I don't care if anyone's home, if anyone's home or not, if I choke, to have a Heimlich maneuver, because it's a response. You're doing this because you want to feel comfortable, but you're not really dealing with your anxiety. You're doing it because you want to feel comfortable, relax, there's another person there, you know, which is fine if that's what you desire. Do you desire to eat food? Do you desire to eat food with people? No. You desire to eat food to get over your anxiety, right? And be a happier person, discover yourself more, and basically live less anxiously. So if you look at it like that, then you have no desire to really be with another person unless you want to, right? You got to separate your anxiety from what you really want. That's what I realized. So that's a good thought to talk about. Next thought, family. Same with family. Choking phobia is a real issue. No, choking phobia is a front for a real issue. Choking phobia is a front. Real issue is lack of family, support circle, loneliness, and my gay Islam relationship. Okay, I've come to this conclusion. It has nothing to do with, basically, I actually genuinely fear I will choke on food. Because once I've kind of like dealt with that and got into a manageable level, I realized I still have thoughts that are undesirable, thoughts that I never really thought I should be talking about or thinking about or discussing or trying to get better from, but they're thoughts nonetheless. And they're thoughts that I didn't really have any solutions to because I didn't really know I was supposed to be thinking about them. For example, what is the relationship between gay and Islam? I would just always go to the mainstream scholars and everything and listen to them. It's easy with all due respect to them, and I give them the highest etiquette. I give them the highest respect. I don't want to be disrespectful to Islamic scholars at all because of just how much they've touched my lives and helped me and helped me get closer to my God. It's just they don't understand what it feels like to be a gay Muslim. To be someone like that, they just look at it maybe like as an anxiety disorder, or for some of the conservatives ones, they would look at it like, you know, a test or like some sort of, you know, misunderstanding in terms of, you know, no, you like girls, don't you, type of thing. So makes you think, like, you know, the relationship has to come from within. You have to decide the relationship between your homosexuality and your Islam. No imam is going to decide it for you, unfortunately. You know, you can have an imam decide it for you. It's just, will that be, you know, what you want for the rest of your life, or will you just be like doing it because the imam is saying it? There's nothing wrong with doing that if you want to do that, but I want to, because of my anxiety, I want to do things not because they make me feel comfortable, right? Not because they help my anxiety. That's nice, but the real way anxiety should be dealt with is just by dealing with it straight on, head on. And if you realize there's other problems underneath, you deal with those head on, straight on as well. Or else you'll just kind of be kidding yourself and thinking I'm magically kind of like less anxious, but it's more of like a placebo effect. It's more of like you believing you're going to get cured, therefore you'll get cured. There's nothing wrong with that, except, you know, it's not scientific. It's not Like, there's no way you can just kind of ignore your homosexual tendencies. You need to kind of resolve them in a way. As some of my psychologists said you need to resolve that tension. And that's one of the ways. You go downtown to this group and you meet these people, and I've met them before, and I've sat with them, and I realized they're exactly like us, which I always knew. It's just that I didn't know how other people didn't realize homosexual people like us. For example, I went down there with someone, and he afterwards he said to me, "Wow, I would have never went down if it was for you." And these people, and he was saying it like they're normal. Like, he couldn't even believe that they were normal. He thought they were gonna be sex starved. I don't know what he was thinking, but he was saying it like, these people, they're just people. And they are just people. Like, there's nothing inherently bad or good about them. They're just people. I would like to think most people are good rather than evil. And I don't like to think that just because of their sexual orientation, like, they had no real, choice in deciding that we're gonna just say they're bad. So I made a graph about this, if you can see. Basically, you can see the top is my choking phobia in the water. It's the iceberg. At the bottom, you can see the loneliness, trauma, divorce, gay, Islamic relationships. That's basically where we're at right now. We're not at the part where we're dealing with the choking phobia, even though we are. It's becoming more mechanical at this point, the choking phobia. And we need to start moving on to the more traumatic stuff. I'll choke. Am I allowed to sit like this? All right, let's see what I won. The McDonald's. I didn't win anything, but I think I got some stuff. So collect. Maybe I'll win some stuff. A possible alternate happy place is the mosque. I was saying about that. Hamza Yusuf saying 1960s. I just like how he says it. 1960s. It's very like comforting to the way I swallow. 1960s. It's very like he has a very energy. He has a very powerful energy. I had the pleasure of shaking his hand one time, and I remember it was just like his life is just completely full of lights all the time, and so we're all dark people. When we're in his presence, it's honestly, it's like you're shook a little bit. You're just like, when like a flashlight's shown on a like a dark space and there's an animal there, the animal gets startled. That's kind of how I think most people feel when they in the presence of this person we were listening to. They get startled a bit because they realize their own darkness in a way, and it's very important, I think, to be in contact with those other people. All right, end the video here. Unless I want to talk about anything else, I don't know if I do. I do want to talk about trauma, but I don't know, like, what more is there to talk about? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my medication, take it, and I'll come back and I'm gonna talk about trauma. Just give me a couple minutes to talk about trauma. Guys, I'm back. So we're gonna talk about trauma now. Okay. What is trauma? Trauma is a psychological issue whereby one feels that their mind is unable to process this pain, so they put up walls and barriers. For example, my pain of coming out and then simultaneously having my parents divorce and breaking up with my ex-boyfriend at the time would be considered trauma. The thing is, I couldn't deal with that. It's even hard to talk about it right now, but I couldn't deal with it at the time. And so I kind of like, in a way, I don't want to say contracted, as much as I learned and developed and thus was diagnosed in a way with choking phobia. It's only once you realize choking phobia, once you realize that that's treatable, you realize just choking phobia is kind of like a symptom of trauma. It's a way for your body to be like, slow down, you know, be aware of stuff entering yourself, be okay with what's going on and what's touching you, what's going in, what's going out. Because I wish I could tell you what you should be thinking. Unfortunately, you have to think that yourself. There are no easy answers to this. It takes you a long, long time to be at peace with that. As I said in the beginning, I thought it could be solved through just reading a lot and smoking a lot of weed and just kind of staying away from people. Once I realized people were wondering why I wasn't going out, then maybe I had a bit of a problem. A problem with people, a problem with society, a problem with just... You know when you get anxious the first time you actually feel it, it gets really, really bad. It's like... It's like you'd be doing something mundane, like just walking outside your house, smoke a cigarette, whatever. You realize something's not right. You shouldn't be feeling this way all the time. You know, I feel very tired. I feel that my society, my mom, my dad, my friends, my brother are telling me, you're acting differently. You're not acting how you used to. And that's when it kind of kicks in, when everyone, your loved ones, kind of say to you, you know, get yourself together, and you can't. And that's when you realize, well, what do I do now? Let's talk about how one deals with anxiety. One of the ways one deals with anxiety is EMDR therapy, where you somehow get lulled into a state where you believe you have more time to deal with your trauma, you know, than you really do, even though it's good to think you do, because it's either that or you're never going to deal with it anyway. And then the point of time doesn't matter, because if you're never going to deal with it anyway, time ceases to exist. For example, if I say to you, I'm going to give you $5 never, does time ever matter to you then? Someone asked you, what time is it? Like, that doesn't matter. I was going to give this guy $5 never, right? But if you say to yourself, even just as a lie, like it's daytime, you say it's nighttime, at least now you have a chance of figuring out what time it is. That's what EMDR therapy is. It gives you a sense of just a sense of, like, you know, give yourself some time to not get lazy and do stupid things and feel sorry for yourself, even though I can see a lot of people do that, and I've been guilty of that as well. But no, that's not what EMDR is for. It's for to give you that time so you can process your trauma and be like, okay, so I'm okay with it now. I know where those feelings are coming from. I know where those bodily sensations are coming from. And I feel that as much as I would like to have a life that's less trauma-free and less sad sometimes, I have to talk about my trauma because I can't just ignore it. That's what I've learned about life. You can't ignore problems. They'll just get bigger. You actually have to do something about them, or they'll just get bad. I think that's as much as I want to share right now with my trauma. Okay, guys. So I appreciate you guys watching this video, and remember, guys, stay with it.